As you might have guessed by the title, our story starts with a girl who gets mistaken for having a terminal illness. Seems like kind of a specific thing to mistake, if you ask me. To figure out what happened, we need to go 6 months back from the present day to an ordinary evening, much like any other. Our protagonist, Lindell Bodabanche, is vice leader of the Imperial Guard, returned from a day of sparring, exhausted and ready for bed. But she noticed something off. Immediately, she withdrew her sword and challenged the stranger to reveal themselves. Only it wasn't a person. At least, they didn't seem to be a person. More like a spirit, though they called themselves the Black Dragon, otherwise known as the Black Laroque. The strange presence materialized into a beautiful but sly young lady and offered Lindell a deal. She wanted her, one of the greatest knights in the Empire, to become her personal contractor. Sounds like a bit of a step down from Imperial Guard, don't you think? But of course, the deal wasn't that simple. If Lindell agreed, Laroque promised to grant her deepest desire. Anything, even things which would normally be impossible. She could wish to live forever or become Empress of the world. Just so long as she agreed to make a contract with this very suspicious spirit lady. I don't know about you guys, but I would have gone running for the hills already. These kind of deals are always more trouble than they're worth. Lindell was smart enough to know there would be a catch and forced Laroque to reveal her quest. Her task would be to find Laroque's real body somewhere in the world and break the seal upon it. Uh-oh, that can't be good. They don't put seals on dead people for no reason. Laroque can't tell her why she was sealed away, but explains that she only has 1 year to exist as this form, a temporary body made of mostly mana. If she agreed, Lindell will have exactly 1 year to break the seal and have her wish granted. To be honest, Laroque chose her target well. Not only is Lindell a master with a sword, but she also has a lot of wishes. As the illegitimate child of a noble family, she has always wanted recognition by her father for her talents and success in life. And yet, no matter how high she climbed, he never acknowledged her capabilities or considered her a part of the family. So of course she accepted the contract. Only it led to a very strange and unpredictable scenario. Now we get to see why the Emperor thinks she's terminally ill. It turns out that accepting the contract also gave her the power of the dragon, which is so powerful that it makes her vomit blood while she's adapting. But it's not a bad thing, it's just a little side effect. Unfortunately, she didn't get a chance to explain that when the Emperor noticed her symptoms. In fact, he got all intense and ordered her to never leave his side. She did try to convince him that her body is perfectly healthy, but this guy doesn't seem like the type who listens. Clearly, he cares a lot about Lindell because when he found out, he stripped her of her position and ordered her to be moved to the Northern Palace and not allowed outside. That seems a tad melodramatic, don't you think? This is not how Lindell was expecting the situation to go. If you hadn't picked up on the hints already, she's been in love with Emperor Sionel Ulysses Woodburg since long before he took the throne and dedicated most of her life to serving him. But if this is how he repays her hard work, I'm thinking Bessie might need a new crush ASAP. Fast forward to a few days later, and a fearful-looking maid comes creeping into her new quarters to offer breakfast. This girl's name is Luna, and she's a personal maid dedicated to Lindell's service. Lindell tries to refuse, but she hasn't eaten in days, and Luna is insisting. Besides, everyone thinks she's sick, so they're extra concerned for her. But that's just the problem. This lie is eating away at her, especially since the person she cares most about believes it. She has to find a way to talk to CNL, and so far, the only tactic she's come up with is to refuse her meals, hoping that he'll come in himself to check on her. But when Luna announces that the head chef made duck soup especially for her, she can't resist. It seems like the whole palace is worried for her, so wouldn't it be selfish to refuse? At least, that's what she tells herself. And really, who can blame her? I'd probably do the same. Luna is delighted and starts setting the table immediately. She keeps saying that Lindell needs to eat to help her body fight off the illness. Little does she know that staying in these fancy quarters and being doted on like this is the real danger to her life. If the Emperor keeps true to his promise, then she'll be stuck here, unable to find Laroque's body before their contract is up. 6 months have already passed. It's not like she's got extra time to kill. But first, Luna's right. She does need to eat. Lindell is about to dig in and have her first meal in a week when the Emperor himself arrives at last. What brilliant timing. Lindell drops her fork immediately and goes back into loyal knight mode, kneeling before her Emperor. Damn, she really is down bad, huh? CNL sees the untouched plate of food and thinks she's still refusing to eat. He has this terrifying look in his eye and keeps saying intense things about how she's trying to end her own life. Lindell slaps his hand away and tells him for the 1000th time that this is all a misunderstanding. She's perfectly healthy. But it is a little hard to explain the whole vomiting blood thing. She keeps silent even when the Emperor brings forward a skilled healer and orders him to find out what her illness is. For obvious reasons, he can't figure it out and throws himself on the ground in defeat. Is everyone in this empire this dramatic? Seriously, these people all need to chill the heck out. Lindell defends the healer, telling the Emperor this isn't his fault. She switches tactics, hoping that if he thinks she's a hopeless cause, then he'll just let her go. I think we all know how that's gonna go down. As expected, the Emperor ignores her even when she insists she can't be cured. He promises to search the entire world for a healer that can fix her and orders her to stay here and recover. Lindell refuses. As she points out, they no longer need her. Cianel has taken the throne, the Empire is strong and thriving, and its people are happy under his rule. There's no one for Lindell to protect him from, so now she has no purpose. That sounds kind of sad, but in a weird way, Lindell seems relieved. She's been with him ever since they were little, and always kind of bugged him by refusing to leave his side. She even thinks he might be happy to let her go. Of course, there's one pretty major thing she's missing. Lindell plans to return to the palace after completing this contract. But as far as the Emperor knows, she's on death's door. Sounds like she's giving up her life, happy to let him go and never see him again. And that is obviously not something he would be happy about. Furious, he orders everyone except Lindell out of the room. He looks so mad, I wouldn't be surprised if he finished her off himself right now. Poor Lindell is, understandably, scared. But the Emperor seems more hurt than angry. She was the one who helped put him on the throne, and now she just wants to leave? She still doesn't get how serious he's taking this. She's starting to wonder if he actually cares about her a lot more than she realized. But it still comes as a complete surprise when he starts to cry, asking if she's afraid of him. Oh, well, this took a very different turn to the way I thought it was going. He can't believe that she would have fallen sick and kept it to herself. He's the Emperor, after all. He could have found her a healer before things got serious. He could have saved her. Oh God, she really needs to tell him the truth. This is all coming as a pretty big shock to Lindell, who hasn't tried to hide her feelings for Cianel during the time she served him. He, however, always kept his distance, so much that she thought he didn't like her and just wanted to keep their relationship professional. Maybe he was hiding his heart this whole time, or maybe faced with her death, he's realizing how much she means to him. Either way, he's not ready to let her go. Kneeling in front of her, he takes Lindell's hands and commands her to stay by his side, and keep acting the same as she always has. With a guilty look, she pulls away and refuses. Obviously, the whole contract with an evil spirit is the main problem here, but she finally speaks her mind. He's always seemed irritated by her. She even goes so far as to say he hates her, so there's no point in her sticking around and causing more trouble. As if things couldn't get weirder, Cianel starts to laugh. It's kind of adorable, actually. For a cold-hearted emperor, he can look really cutesy when he wants. To prove her assumptions wrong, he pulls her in for an embrace. He doesn't say exactly how wrong she is, but I think we can all tell she means a heck of a lot more to the Emperor than she realized. At the moment where she's most confused, he quietly confesses that he loves her. What? Okay, I think we all knew he was crushing, but love? Where did that come from? And just how blind does this girl have to be not to have noticed before? Lindell thinks she must have gone mad, but he answers her questions, confirming his affections for her. This should be the moment she starts jumping for joy. Our girl just escaped the friend zone for the first time in decades. But this adds an unexpected complication to the contract she signed. Remember how LaRoque offered to make her deepest desire come true? Well, the wish she made was kind of based on her thinking Cianel hated her. Now he's offering to make her the Empress. The entire course of her life could be about to change in a big way. I guess she didn't need to make that contract after all. Especially because one look in Cianel's eye says it all. This guy is not going to let her go easy. He didn't even formally propose or ask if she wanted her to marry him. I guess that's an emperor for you. He just does what he wants. Doesn't matter what Lindell might say. But that doesn't mean she won't protest. As she points out, even Cianel can't just marry whoever he wants. The nobles will have more than a few things to say about their emperor marrying the illegitimate child of a count. That crazy look comes back in his eyes and he shuts down the conversation. He's made his decision, that's all there is to it. Which is kind of unfair. Not only has he chosen Lindell's life and husband for her, he's also condemning her to a very difficult role. The Empress might not have as much power as her husband, but she's still under a lot of scrutiny and has to work very hard to maintain her position. That's not exactly the kind of future Lindell was hoping for. She's already done her years of service as a knight. But even worse than all that is the limits it would put on her contract. If she doesn't find LaRoque's body and break the seal, then she'll be dead in 6 months anyway. But the more she refuses, the more stubborn the Emperor gets. He doesn't care if it makes her hate him. He doesn't care if he's being selfish. What the Emperor says, goes. And the Emperor says she's staying. The second he leaves the room, Lindell starts to freak out. It's kind of ironic how he thinks he's keeping her in the palace to save her life when actually he might be causing her death. Our poor protagonist doesn't get a second to herself before LaRoque appears, just in time to have a pillow thrown at her. Lindell immediately asks her to cancel the contract, but it doesn't exactly work like that. Contracts are pretty binding at the best of times, but signing one with an evil spirit called the Black Dragon? Well, if you ask me, she's locked in it for life. LaRoque also doesn't see why this turn of events is a bad thing. Didn't she just become the future Empress? She can just sneak out, break the seal, and come back to live the rest of her days in luxury. But apparently, it's not that simple. The magical barriers surrounding the palace are made with incredibly strong magic. It would take a genius wizard to break them. If someone like Lindell tried to escape, let's just say she wouldn't have to worry about the contract anymore. After hearing this, LaRoque seems to relax. If it's a magical problem, then it's no problem. After all, this is the Black Dragon herself we're talking about. It won't take much for her to break some puny human barriers. Or at least, that's what she thinks. To her horror, the magic surrounding the palace is too much for her skills. This empire is ruled with those of the dragon blood, after all. That magic has been strengthened for generations. You can't even use magic in the palace, just healing powers and brute force. Now, LaRoque starts to panic. She even accuses Lindell of seducing the Emperor. I guess she hasn't realized what a lunatic he is. Now they're both in a difficult position. They have to think of a way out. Lindell comes up with an idea to utilize the loopholes in the contract. After all, LaRoque can come in and out of the palace, so there must be some pretty powerful magic in the contract itself. She asks LaRoque to summon the contract so they can comb through it for something useful. Suddenly, the Great Black Dragon gets all timid, claiming it would be too long to read through the whole thing. Apparently, she didn't show Lindell the entire thing when she signed it. Uh-oh, looks like somebody got scammed. Big time. According to LaRoque, it's nearly 2,000 pages altogether. Lindell only saw 13, so she really had no idea what she was signing. Who knows how many other clauses she agreed to without knowing? Like any reasonable person, Lindell is furious. But she's also desperate for a way out, so she sits down to shuffle through all 1,700 pages looking for a way out. It makes her regret signing the damn thing in the first place. It turns out, her wish was to help her win over CNL's heart. Isn't that funny? She wished on something that had already come true. She just didn't know it. All of this is a lot to take in one day, and she's starting to get stressed. In the middle of her yelling at LaRoque, Lindell starts coughing up blood again. Is this a sign that the symptoms are prompted by her emotions? Now she's even more frustrated. While she goes to wash up, she asks LaRoque to clean up the room. They've left it a total mess. The floor is almost completely covered in paper. Before either of them get a chance to clean up, there's a knock at the door. Looks like they've got a guest, and it's the leader of the Imperial Guard. LaRoque vanishes in a heartbeat, leaving Lindell to clear up the room and hide the contract. She only gets about 2 steps before stubbing her toe against the wall. It's so painful that she starts to yell out, and of course, then the leader of the Imperial Guard comes running in to check that she's okay. Shrain Impaster is very close with Lindell, so naturally he's horrified to find her hunched on the floor with blood all over her shirt. He immediately summons a healer, and the cycle starts again. Yikes, who knew one little side effect would be so troublesome? She somehow manages to convince him not to call a healer, but he's still concerned. It's like everything she says is just more proof that she's terminally ill. He's being unusually out of character, even offering to help her to the bed so she can lie down. Lindell promises she can walk herself just fine, but because of the whole foot-bumping incident earlier, her legs have started shaking. Yeah, there's no way he's gonna believe her. Even when she says the blood on her clothes isn't a big deal, he just thinks she's trying to act calm so he won't worry. Honestly, there's no way out. As if all that wasn't enough, there's another misunderstanding brewing. Shrain is convinced Lindell couldn't have made all the mess herself, and he knows CNL visited just before him. So now he's worried the Emperor threw a tantrum or made her so upset that she threw one. He asks if she still has feelings for CNL, and she doesn't bother denying it, even though he is a controlling psychopath. For the first time, though, she gets to share the good news. The Emperor loves her back. Shrain suddenly gets all weird and cold, and Lindell worries she was boasting too much. Is he jealous or something? What the heck is that look in his eye? Is everyone in this manhwa totally insane? Before she can ask what the heck he's staring like that for, her maid Luna comes rushing in and starts weeping in her lap. Looks like another person has joined Team Terminal Illness. Judging by the state of her room and the blood on her shirt, she's certain her mistress has reached her limit and thrown a tantrum out of frustration. She goes on this whole rant about how she knew Lindell was only pretending to be a lazy slob who laid around all day and ate like a pig. Ouch! Pretty sure she was just enjoying an opportunity to relax. She is an Imperial Knight, you know. No matter what Lindell says, Luna is convinced, and this whole demonstration has set Shrain off again too. Honestly, at this point, I'm starting to think she should just give up. It's kind of touching that everyone cares about her so much, and maybe if she accepts their help, she can get everyone to relax and find a way out of this palace. With Luna staring fiercely at Lindell, holding her hands tightly like she might fade away any second, you might think she's just as crazy as the rest of them, but she's genuinely motivated by concern for her mistress. There was one night when she first got confined where Lindell couldn't sleep and kept staring out the window. She said the same as always, that she was fine and this was all a misunderstanding. But she also mentioned how people just believe what they want to believe and there was nothing she could do. Luna reassured her, telling her about all the people who are worried for her. And it's not like Lindell wasn't grateful. She's lucky to be surrounded by such good people, particularly Luna. She even says she wishes they could be together for a long time. She's developing a bad habit of saying things that make it seem like she's dying. It's no wonder no one believes her. Her maid is convinced that she's just repressing her own pain to keep those around her from feeling sad. It only makes her more loyal to Lindell, determined to find any way possible to keep her around. After all, she spent her first week in confinement just lazing around and refusing to eat. She didn't realize it was only because the doctor-approved food was gross and she didn't feel like doing anything. Lindell tries to explain that now to Luna and Shrain, but they just think her body is too messed up to have an appetite. Well, if they're really so desperate to misunderstand her, then she might as well take advantage of it. Putting on her best sick patient impression, she asks them all to give her some time alone. Once all the busybodies are out of the way, Lindell can finally wash up and relax. She can also give some more serious thought to the many problems that have sprung up. It's becoming rapidly clear that there's no point trying to solve the misunderstandings about her illness. The most important thing right now is the contract and finding a way to fulfill it. But as soon as she has that stack of paper in her hands, Lindell feels defeated again. Maybe there's another way she can work around this, like negotiating with CNL to let her leave the palace. Are you sure, bestie? Don't we remember how that turned out last time? Apparently, she does remember, because Lindell gives up that idea and goes back to reading her contract. She ends up spending the whole night reading through the contract, but has still made barely any progress. I guess it's time to go and face CNL. She'll just have to get past the guards outside her room, and also hope that no one sees her eye bags and causes another misunderstanding. But what do you know, that's exactly what happens. Luna walks into the room and has the shock of her life, talking about her face is ruined from the lack of sleep. That's a little harsh, don't you think? Lindell tries to brush her off, but Luna grabs her firmly. She's hoping she can make a break for it if she just doesn't raise her suspicions. That is, until she notices that the guards at her door have increased. Apparently, the Emperor wasn't happy that his captain of the guard came to visit without permission. From now on, he's been barred from visiting, and her new guards seem even stricter than the last. No matter how much she insists on seeing CNL, the guard steps in her way and refuses to move, following his Emperor's orders to a T. Well, desperate times call for desperate needs. If they think she's sick, then so be it. With a stroke of inspiration, Lindell clutches at her heart and pretends to feel faint. As she predicted, the guards start to swarm around her, providing the perfect opportunity for her to leap over them and land like a well-trained ninja towards the door. And they still think she's terminally ill? Really? Unfortunately, her break for freedom is short-lived as she runs into just the man she was looking for. Uh-oh. If he was angry before, he's going to be furious now. For a moment, CNL is too stunned to speak. He asks what she's doing here, and when she can't answer, that crazy look comes back in his eyes, and he holds her tighter. Before she can explain herself, the guards arrive and immediately apologize for failing to follow his orders. They even ask for the death penalty as a punishment, because apparently, no one in this manhwa has any chill whatsoever. Not wanting them to suffer for her actions, Lindell distracts His Highness by calling him CNL. I guess that's the first time she's ever used his name instead of calling him Emperor. Unfortunately, it doesn't have quite the effect she was hoping for. She insists she was only coming to see him and wraps her arms tight around him, insisting that she missed him. She's half worried he'll be offended. I mean, I know he basically proposed to her, but she's never acted so clingy with him before. Maybe it won't go down well. Oh, never mind. Look at the way that boy is blushing! He's totally smitten. At least we now know his weakness. Before the two of them can get lost in each other's eyes, the guards clear their throat, reminding them they're not alone. CNL promises to come and visit more often and asks that she doesn't come out of her room in future. Which is pretty much exactly the opposite effect of what she was hoping for. She tries to persuade him that she's fine to go outside, but as always, he's stiffer than a brick wall. In another world, it could be kinda cute. He just doesn't want her to get hurt or make her illness any worse. He even slumps on his shoulders like he's trying to guilt trip her into obeying. Well, two can play that game. With her fists clenched, Lindell tells him she feels so lonely and stuffy being cooped up in that bedroom all alone. Maybe it will even make her health worse. It's certainly having an effect on her mental health, that's for sure. This at least does get through to the Emperor, who apologizes for making her feel abandoned. He promises never to make her feel alone again. So from now on, she'll live by his side in the Emperor's palace. What? That's not even legal! He can't keep a woman he's not married to in the Emperor's palace. The nobles will revolt. Now this problem has spiraled way out of proportion. Should she just give up and accept her fate? If she's staying right beneath the Emperor's nose, there's no way she'll be able to read the contract, let alone try and sneak out. And this will only add fuel to the becoming an Empress issue. In front of all the knights and nobles, Lindell reminds him that she's not worthy to become an Empress. From out of nowhere, a young general pops up and cuts her off, saying there's no one more qualified than her to become the Empress. Has anyone else proven their love and loyalty for the Emperor the way she has? A load of nobles suddenly appear out of thin air, including Lindell's family, who give their support for taking the position of Empress. Wait, is this a dream? What is going on? CNL uses them as proof to show her that the nobles would accept her as the Empress. Did he invite her family and all these nobles just to make a point? He's certainly stubborn enough to do that. But if there's one person more stubborn than him, it's her. In front of everyone, Lindell slaps his hand away, causing a minor outrage among the gathered nobles. Before she can explain herself, her nose starts to bleed, dripping blood onto the carpet. Great. I think that is literally the worst timing imaginable. Half the palace just saw her have a nosebleed, which is probably just because she's exhausted from staying up all night. But they don't care about that. And they don't care about anything Lindell has to say. Guards start running for a healer, and the next second she's scooped up in the Emperor's arms. He doesn't want to hear another word from her. And frankly, it's hard to say anything when you're pressed against the chest of the most powerful man in the Empire. Doesn't hurt that he's so handsome either. The next thing she knows, Lindell is taken to the Emperor's own bedroom and tucked up in bed with a small army of maids and guards surrounding her. Like anyone would be in this situation, she's a little embarrassed and tries to tell him to go back to his work. Shouldn't an emperor have better things than standing and looking at a sick girl all day? Apparently not, and her concern for CNL has just got her even more points as a potential empress with the maids. I'm seriously starting to think she should just give up. Everything she does just makes it worse. At last, the healer arrives and places a recovery spell on her at once. It doesn't do anything, obviously, so she asks him to stop, not wanting him to use up all his mana on a fake patient. The poor guy seems genuinely distressed, which is understandable. She's making him seem like a quack, like the reason she's not recovering is because he's a bad doctor. That's definitely what CNL is thinking anyway. Even when the doctor insists the nosebleed was just from fatigue, he somehow spins it to make her out like some fragile little doll. I don't know about you guys, but this is getting ridiculous. Does anyone else think she should just tell him the truth? Maybe if he knew her life really was in danger, he would let her go complete the contract. The doctor asks a few more questions about her symptoms, particularly shortness of breath and having no strength in her legs. Kind of vague symptoms, but for some reason a light bulb goes off in his head and he diagnoses her with a twisted soul. Huh, maybe he really is a quack. Of course, everyone around her takes this very seriously, and the Emperor asks him to explain. Since the doctor couldn't find any source for her illness, he's turned his attention to conditions that develop over time before showing their symptoms. He spent hours and hours in the library researching anything that matches Lindell's condition, and eventually he discovered twisted souls, a condition that only comes from being cursed. Oops, how did he figure that out? Technically, Lindell isn't suffering a curse. Her body is being changed from the inside out to make her wish come true. But the truth is, it doesn't look a lot like a curse. And maybe that's how the contract works? Perhaps this hidden curse is what will kill her if she fails to fulfill the term of the contract. The only thing that doesn't match up is the timeline. The doctor said twisted soul symptoms only reveal themselves in patients who've been cursed for a long time. And as she accidentally reveals to the entire room, hers only happened recently. Everyone goes silent. The doctor doesn't seem surprised that she already knew. After all, it's pretty hard to get cursed by accident. But the Emperor is furious. He can't believe she didn't tell him. It doesn't make sense. Until the doctor provides a perfect cover-up story. What if Lindell sacrificed herself, taking on a curse that was meant for the Emperor from one of his enemies? And actually, it does kind of make sense. You see, CNL always had aches and pains, problems with his health when he was younger. Then after he met Lindell, they just magically disappeared. Which is kind of spooky. You can see where he got this whole narrative from. It's the perfect story. The Emperor's dedicated knight who shielded him from a curse and stayed by his side, knowing that one day she would die for him. It's so sweet that even the maids have started crying. The only problem is, it's not true. Not even a little bit. But you can't tell that to CNL. He's fallen hook, line, and sinker. After all, she was always trying to protect him, warning him about his countless enemies and promising to protect him with her life. Now he sees what she was trying to do. Slip away so she could die quietly with the burden of all the curses she took on for him. He's so invested in this fantasy that he starts crying. More than anything, he wants to know who's responsible for these curses. The doctor chimes in, suggesting the previous empress. For a bit of context, CNL was actually born of a maid. The true empress, his stepmother, despised him, plotted against him, and even tried to have him killed once or twice. She also had a sorceress on her side, making her the perfect scapegoat for this cursed crime. Everyone's completely forgotten about Lindell now. They're so invested in this story they're inventing. The doctor claims the only way to save Lindell will be to find the Black Healer. Sounds ominous. Apparently, there's a famous sorcerer in the South Seas who is known to treat souls. As far as the learned doctor knows, only the Black Healer could save a case like Lindell. After this dramatic scene with the doctor, the story runs right across the Empire. You can see why it gets so popular. A young girl who sacrifices herself to save the emperor she loves? It's practically Shakespeare. The rumor spreads like wildfire, and soon Lindell has lots of visitors from the Royal Guard. Some of her old friends were genuinely shocked to hear the news, and they're just as ignorant as the rest, not listening to a word she says when she tries to explain. At least CNL is being less of a psycho and more of a lovebird these days. Actually, he's a bit extreme, even carrying her to the bathroom and back. The girls are all jealous of how well she's taken care of, especially how dedicated he is to finding this Black Healer so she can be cured. Half the Empire has been enlisted in the search. Schrain has taken the lead for the Imperial Knights, seeing this as a mission on behalf of their future Empress. The Knights start asking about the curse and how she managed to save CNL. When she tells them it's all a lie, they don't believe her, and she ends up throwing a fit and kicking them out of her room. Fair enough, I'd be frustrated too. Later that evening, CNL comes to her room to go through some documents. And before you get excited, no, nothing happened between them. Like a dutiful boyfriend, the Emperor comes to see her every night, but he never takes his eyes off his work. She asks him why he sent the Imperial Guard out to search for the Black Healer. Their duty is to stay at the palace and guard the Emperor. If their numbers start to dwindle, then he'll be in danger. CNL just finds it sweet that she's still worrying about him and doesn't take her concern very seriously. What else is new? He never listens to her. He asks if there's another reason for her concern. Like, love, maybe? Like any girl would, Lindell gets all flustered, partly because he's got her pinned on the bed beneath him. Unfortunately for us, the tension diffuses quickly, and they start talking about what attracted them to one another. Lindell admits she thought they were similar, being lonely, illegitimate children and all. She tries to find out why CNL likes her back, but he acts all coy and won't say. I have a feeling we'll get the full story one day. Over the next few days, Lindell tries her best to make another dent in the contract and gets a visit from Larocque. She seems a little different this time and admits she might have to go away for a few days. Some urgent business came up, which means she won't be able to help Lindell read through the contract. Not that she was much help anyway. It's a bit frustrating for our poor knight, whose life is still very much on the line. Over the last 6 months, they searched through every corner of the Empire and decided her body must be in another country. That means the search to break the seal is only going to get harder. She needs all the help she can get. Larocque doesn't explain, but she can't delay this trip. After a moment to think, Lindell calmly tells her it's fine, she can go, which comes as a bit of surprise to the Black Dragon. It's not like she has much reason to trust her, after that little stunt she pulled with the contract. Larocque is touched by her faith and promises to return as quickly as possible. She leaves Lindell with Estelle, a rare medicine made only by dragons that can cure any ailment and keeps her body in balance. Might come in handy if she has any more blood to cough up. Of course, it's also very dangerous to humans and might give her even more side effects, so, as usual, the Black LaRoque has been more harm than help. Once she disappears, Lindell and Luna start discussing plans for the National Foundation Day. Lindell accidentally lets slip that she's tired, but since she hasn't even left her room, Luna freaks out and calls the doctor back again. Oh no, not this old coot! He's the craziest of them all! They play the usual game where Lindell insists she's fine and the doctor makes up something even more ridiculous than the last time to validate his own theories. I don't know about you guys, but I'm starting to think he really is a quack. His latest theory is that she's in so much pain that she can't actually feel any of it. What kind of nonsense is that? Lindell is so desperate to prove herself that she invites him to test her. With quite a lot of concern, the doctor presses her hands to see if she can feel the pain. The only problem is, he's weaker than a baby bird. He's literally shaking with the effort, but Lindell hasn't reacted. Well, duh, she was a knight. She's gonna have a pretty high pain tolerance. Give her some credit. Lindell is convinced he's joking and asks him to press harder. That only makes his theory more believable, especially when she flies off the handle in rage. The doctor goes on a whole nother speech about how she doesn't have much time left and they need to find a healer ASAP. Lindell can't listen to another word of it and storms out of the room. At least this time, she makes it around the corner. But like before, she's found. This time by Sir Oscar Beaurebanche. Yes, you guessed it, he's Lindell's half-brother. They don't exactly have the best relationship, partly because he's so cold and heartless. Though they are technically family, these two have less in common than distant relatives. If anything, that's why it comes as a surprise when he sympathizes with her situation. He even offers a shoulder for her to lean on. Well, this is weird. As if that wasn't enough surprises for one day, he also reveals that her father, the Count, has put in a huge number of troops to search for this black healer guy. Askell tries to walk her back to her room, but she doesn't get 2 steps before she faints. Okay, this is kind of freaky. Is it just me, or does anyone think LaRoque left her that medicine for a reason? She knew her symptoms were going to get worse. And speaking of LaRoque, guess who's there when she wakes up? The Emperor and the Black Dragon make an unlikely pair. For a second, Lindell thinks she's dreaming, and I don't blame her. They're already bickering, which is starting to grate on Askell. He must be the one who brought her here, wherever here is. But the strangest figure of all is a little boy standing beside her. What the heck is a kid doing here? As soon as CNL sees she's awake, he walks over and orders the kid not to touch her. Her brother says the same, which seems a little harsh. Feeling threatened, the kid pulls closer to Lindell and whines that the adults keep bullying him. Obviously, she has no idea who this kid is, but she still defends him in front of the Emperor and asks him not to be so harsh to a little boy. That's when CNL reveals that boy is not as innocent as he seems. For a moment, she thinks he's just jealous, but when she looks back, the child has grown into a full-sized adult male. A very nicely sized adult male, if I might add. He seems surprised that she doesn't know who he is already, but just as he's introducing himself, a voice pierces her subconscious, asking her to wake up. Suddenly, the scene changes. Her brother, LaRoque, and Askell all disappear, and all she can see is the Emperor weeping while holding her hands. The only person who seems to know what's going on is this hooded figure. Annoyed by the interruption, he tells her to go back, wherever back is. Whether she wants to or not, he's certain they'll see each other again. With a click of his fingers and a slightly creepy parting smile, Lindell is sent back to her real body, where she wakes with a gasp. Just as we suspected, CNL was beside her. He's clearly been crying. His hands are shaking too. Looks like she gave everyone a bit of a shock. Lindell is, understandably, a little dazed, so the Emperor explains. He brought her to the Temple of Lute, the god of the dead. Not exactly somewhere you want to wake up. They must have thought she was in a pretty bad way to bring her here. Slowly, it starts to sink in that all of that was a dream. The little boy in the robe, LaRoque and CNL, even Askell, none of it was real. And on top of all that, she's been brought to the Temple of Lute instead of the Temple of the God of Life, Ursula, where sick patients normally go to be treated. The keen-eyed amongst you might have also noticed that Lindell is in a different outfit. A very fancy outfit. Eventually, CNL tells her what happened. Lindell pretty much died. She stopped breathing, so there wasn't any more the healing priest could have done for her. That's when they brought her here. The priests of Lute claim her spirit has now stabilized, which is how she ended up back in her body. Sounds like a load of baloney if you ask me. And Lindell feels the same. She starts getting all worked up about what a fuss these crazy people are making and tells them all to stop spreading nonsense. But it's not nonsense to CNL. He was so worried and begs her not to be angry, pulling her into a sudden hug. He seems different from... I don't think we've ever seen him looking so scared before. Seeing him so afraid makes Lindell take a step back. But she still thinks he overreacted by bringing her to the Temple of Lute. She was probably only out for a minute or two, right? Wrong. Lindell hasn't been breathing for 3 whole days. Now you can see why he was panicking. Poor CNL is so teary-eyed he can hardly speak. Which is understandable, considering he literally thought she was dead. But this doesn't make sense. Why did she end up fainting? Who was that guy she saw? Is he part of the contract somehow? Or is this a whole separate issue? My head is starting to spin. Lindell jokes that this must have been her funeral since she's dressed all pretty and there are so many people gathered around. Obviously, the Emperor doesn't respond very well to that, but they don't get a chance to talk anymore when a new arrival walks into the room. Judging by the other priests' reactions, this dude is not popular. Whoever he is, the Emperor hates him too, but he seems to be in debt to him somehow. I guess this guy had something to do with bringing Lindell back. In fact, he says so himself that he was the one who saved her life. Is it just me, or does he remind anyone else of that guy from her dream? Despite performing such a marvelous feat on the future Empress, this man feels he's not being celebrated quite as much as he deserves. He finds it funny that no one trusts him and asks if he did something wrong. It's hard to tell what happened while she was out of it, but clearly the Emperor feels very disrespected by this man and warns him that this kind of thing won't happen again. Well, yeah, I hope not. It's not exactly a casual thing to just stop breathing for 3 days straight. Lindell finally realizes this guy must be the famous Dark Priest. Clearly, they need him around to keep Lindell alive. Somehow their lifelines have become tied together. If she falls, so does he, but if he dies, then she does too. Poor CNL must be struggling with that. His favorite thing is threatening to cut someone's head off. Noticing Lindell's curiosity, the Dark Priest kneels down to introduce himself formally as Milene Krostan, taking off his hood to reveal, well, a pretty handsome face, if you ask me. Who knew servants of the God of Death could have such a good jawline? A little stiffly, Lindell thanks him for saving her life. She asks if he's a Dark Priest, and he says no. Just as they're getting acquainted, CNL interrupts and orders him to put his hood back on. I guess he also noticed those mesmerizing eyes. Lindell can tell her man is getting worked up, so she changes the subject by asking how exactly he saved her. The Emperor tells the story of how desperately the palace priest tried to bring her back. They still couldn't find the Dark Priest, so when all else failed, they turned to Lute for the spiritual powers of his followers. That's when he met Milene, whose abilities are similar to those of a Dark Priest. Basically, he can tie spirits back to their bodies and keep them anchored. Lindell's spirit was about to leave her, so it's thanks to him that she was brought back. This must have been the type of thing LaRoque had in mind when she handed over that medicine. Though it wasn't exactly useful in the end. It doesn't matter what medicine she has if she's not breathing long enough to take it. According to Milene, her soul has yet to fully settle back into her body, so he wants to take some precautionary measures. He asks everyone to leave the room, and to their surprise, the Emperor agrees. He promises to wait right outside, and a moment later, he's gone, leaving Lindell with the creepiest man in the Empire. As soon as they're gone, Milene takes off his hood and accuses her of not being a human. Wait, what? Is this something to do with the contract, or... Lindell is just as confused as we are, but before she can say 2 words in her defense, Milene grabs her by the throat, lifting her into the air. CNL? You might want to step back in, buddy. While she's half suffocating, he explains that any human will die the moment their soul leaves their body. The fact that she survived 3 whole days without her spirit means that she cannot possibly be a human. It's impossible. And what does he think she's secretly pretending to be? A dragon. That's right, he thinks the greatest knight in the Empire is actually a dragon like LaRoque. Could this have something to do with the contract? Maybe LaRoque has left some kind of imprint on her soul that's making this guy confused. Lindell tries to protest, grabbing his hand and telling him not to speak nonsense. But he doesn't move an inch, convinced that she's lying. That's when Lindell notices his eyes. They've changed. In fact, they look distinctly like LaRoque's eyes. Does that mean he's the one pretending not to be a dragon? Lindell is literally seconds away from death. This crazy guy seems to be enjoying her struggle, joking that she's not especially strong for a dragon. Yeah, because she's not! Gosh, why can't he get it through his thick skull already? He lets slip that the room is sealed with magic, meaning no one can hear what's going on or even enter until she's dead. For a second, it looks like he's really going to follow through on that promise, but then he lets her go. Lindell drops to her knees, coughing. The next second, he's all up in her face, asking why her dragon scent is so weak. She's not particularly strong either, as evidenced by the whole nearly choking her to death thing. He is asking all these questions as if she knows the answer, as if she can even catch enough of a breath to answer him in the first place. Because she's not speaking, he starts to fill in the blanks himself. Since she's currently in human form, he's thinking she's a hatchling, a baby dragon, but that doesn't explain why she's so physically weak. As soon as he stops running his mouth, she butts in and tells him the truth. She's not a dragon, she's just a normal human girl. Milene doesn't believe this for 1 second and starts asking how she ended up alone. A mother dragon wouldn't have abandoned a baby as weak as her. That's what really tips Lindell over the edge. She yells back that she never had a mother, not one that cared enough to stick around anyway. And she hardly has a family either, considering they've always treated her like an illegitimate outsider. And now he turns up, talking about her being weak and trying to strangle her to death? Lindell doesn't have a clue what's going on, but she assures him she won't go quietly. Now Milene pivots. He still believes she's a dragon, but can't understand how she ended up on her own. Dragons are famously a selfish species, but they had put a lot of emphasis on family. If she was orphaned, another herd would have taken her on. Lindell is in the middle of telling him to stop spouting nonsense when another one of her coughing fits come on. Now will he believe her? Surely it's not normal for dragons to start coughing up blood. Milene suspects this symptom has something to do with her soul separation, but he also seems to believe she really might have been abandoned as a hatchling. I guess that happened to him too. He asks how she ended up with this condition and whether a dragon did this to her. It feels like this is going to lead to one heck of a misunderstanding, but Lindell says yes, because technically that's true, right? She's starting to get a little freaked out by Milene and his intensity, but he won't let her go. He says he wants to help get revenge on the ones who tried to kill her, which is kind of a crazy thing to say to a girl he just strangled half to death. To her surprise, Milene seems very upset by this, like he doesn't want to become the people he despises. He tries to explain himself, but a rumbling from outside cuts him off. The next second, there's an explosion at the door and CNL bursts in. Wait, did he do that himself? Even though the door was sealed with magic? I guess Milene underestimated the dragon heritage of the Emperor. And he might be about to get another taste, because the moment CNL spots the marks on his fiance's neck, he summons a firestorm and takes the first shot at Milene. Oh dear, this could get very bad very quickly. He may have the actual blood of the dragon emperors running through him, but he's still no match for an actual dragon. Lindell tries to run in and stop him before the situation escalates, warning CNL he's not a human. But he already knew. I'm not exactly sure how, but it doesn't seem like Milene told him. That's not the kind of secret you let slip, especially not to an emperor. He knew the whole time. Actually, it seems like he still knows more than he's letting on. He didn't want to bring Lindell here, but he had no choice. Of course, that doesn't mean he'll let this slide. He sends a torrent of fire toward Milene, who narrowly misses the blow. Rather than being scared, Milene is impressed. CNL has better abilities than he'd expect of a human, even one with dragon blood. But the servant of Lute is more interested in how he found out about his heritage. Clearly, CNL isn't in the mood to talk. He shuts Lindell in a mana barrier, keeping her protected so he can fight alone. Which is hella chivalrous, but maybe not the smartest idea. Why is the Emperor even going up against this guy if he knows he's a dragon? That's an obvious win for Milene. The two of them go head-to-head with their magic, each blow more impressive than the last. Even from behind the mana field, Lindell can tell her future hubby is struggling. She has to step in and do something before someone gets seriously injured. Suddenly, Lindell is lifted into the air by a warm sensation. Her aura must have returned, which is kind of weird. She hasn't been able to use it since she signed the contract, so why has it come back now? There's no time to ask questions. She yells at the boys to stop this stupid fight and breaks the mana barrier with one clean punch. Pretty badass, don't you think? She steps towards them, warning them not to keep making a scene or else she'll step in. The threat doesn't exactly work though, because the next moment her legs give out. Is she not strong enough to be using her mana again yet? It all vanishes in a heartbeat, and suddenly Lindell is exhausted and her body feels like lead. CNL rushes to her side immediately, and she starts coughing blood again. This comes as a real shock to Malene. As far as he noticed, there was nothing wrong with her condition except the spirit separation. CNL asks him what the problem is, but since this creepy priest can't give him a real answer, he orders him to go and fetch a priest to use their healing powers. There's a big gust of energy when he glares at Malene, which makes me think maybe our Emperor isn't a straightforward human either. I mean, this dude just held his own in a battle with a dragon. Shouldn't that be pretty impossible for a normal human, even if he is the Emperor? Back to Lindell. Although she coughed up a lot of blood, she doesn't feel dizzy the way she used to when these symptoms first started. Her body must be changing faster than she realized, but whether it's changing for the better or worse, we can't tell just yet. For now, they've decided to drag back that silly old man priest, the one who came up with the famous story about her taking on a curse for the Emperor. What nonsense will he cook up this time? The priest, at least, has enough sense to yell at CNL and Malene. They definitely shouldn't be picking a fight in front of a girl who just spent the last 3 days outside of her body. She needs rest, not this kind of tension. Even the ground was shaking. He also points out the bruises on Lindell's neck, which is a great point. I can't believe they're not freaking out more about this, because that is straight-up attempted murder. To everyone's surprise, Malene apologizes and asks about the curse Lindell supposedly took on for CNL. She tells him the same story she's told everyone else, that there is no curse, her spirit is perfectly fine, and this is all just a massive misunderstanding. She asks him to explain that to the others, but it turns out he can't actually detect the status of a spirit, just whether it's in a body or not. Well, he's pretty much useless then. I mean, what kind of skill is that? In his opinion, the priest's story about a curse makes the most sense. Even if it's not a curse, there's definitely something distorting her spirit, which sounds crazy to Lindell. But they do know of a case where a victim's spirit was distorted, causing such severe bodily harm that they eventually died, and all without the spirit leaving a trace. He asks Lindell to be totally honest with him so that he can help save her. For obvious reasons, she doesn't exactly trust him, but he apologizes and promises to do his best before vanishing in a puff of smoke. Are we sure he's not just a kooky con man? After Malene's disappearance, Lindell rounds on the Emperor, asking why he left her alone with a man he knew was secretly a dragon. CNL is frustratingly vague and doesn't explain how he knew or why he trusted the servant of Lute. All he can say is that they still need Malene, and that he definitely knows more than he's letting on. After they return from the temple, things kind of go back to normal. CNL resumes his position as the Emperor and gets very busy very quickly. National Foundation Day is just around the corner, so there's a lot of work to be done. Lindell goes back to spending most of her time alone in her room, which would suck if she hadn't just got her aura back. Since she is used to honing it with a sword, she picks up a candlestick to test her abilities and see if she's returned to full strength. Extending her aura is easy enough, but it seems to have a time limit. She can't keep it up for more than 3 seconds, and her legs give out straight after. And she seems to cough up blood each time she uses it. Just in time for Luna to come running in and have a mini meltdown once again. She seems upset that Lindell won't lean on her and never calls for Luna when something goes wrong. And she won't accept that Lindell just doesn't want to bother anyone. In the end, the once famous knight promises to call for her maid or a guard if anything happens in future. Just then, CNL comes rushing into the room. The first thing he sees is the blood on the floor, and he immediately gets mad. She jokes that she was just trying to work out with a candlestick. In fairness, if he doesn't want her to do stupid stuff like this, he should really let her outside. At least a couple times a week. He doesn't listen, and once the priest arrives, he storms out to discuss with a guard. Turns out, these two have been trying to figure out what she's doing inside this room, and they both saw the traces of aura on the candlestick. But that doesn't make sense. Coding a non-sword item like a candlestick is incredibly difficult, and Lindell barely has enough energy to stand up these days. The Emperor just can't figure out what she's up to. That is, until Luna comes to offer up some information. CNL stands impatiently, waiting for Luna to say something about Lindell. Luna fidgets, hesitant and unsure. Worry is written all over her face as she finally says there's something strange about Lindell's behavior. She explains that Lindell smiles more often now, but something about it feels ingenuine, like she's pretending to be in a good mood. Though she says everything is fine, her defensive tone says otherwise. Luna adds that whenever she shows concern, Lindell just gives her a teasing smile. CNL doesn't fully understand, so Luna continues. She says Lindell might be faking it. She smiles around others, but it fades when she's alone. She also avoids help and limits human interaction. The maid cuts in, saying Igamine Lindell is handling something dangerous alone. A powerful enemy might be stopping her from asking for help. When someone opposes her theory, she insists there are signs of aura use. The priest enters and interrupts their talk. CNL quickly asks about Lindell's condition. The priest says she's weak and coughed up a lot of blood, but his divine assessment shows she's healthy aside from some bruises and scrapes. Confused, CNL asks if she's really fine despite all that blood. Some servants suggest it might be her enemies, but the priest confirms it's Lindell's after checking her mouth. CNL says it's strange. She should be anemic. The priest agrees. She used to faint from blood loss, but now she collapses even with enough blood. No one understands what's going on. Concerned, CNL orders them to bring Milene to the basement and cancel his meetings. They're going to the late Empress's tomb. He's determined to uncover what she did to Lindell. In the basement, Milene is shocked that such a place exists. At the tomb, locked behind bars, CNL bursts it open. Milene wonders who could be inside that angers CNL so much. CNL says it's a criminal. Milene recalls rumors of the current emperor killing the former empress. When he asks why he's there, CNL says it's because of Lindell. Otherwise, he wouldn't talk to him. He pauses, eyeing Milene suspiciously. He accuses him of always being around, not just for Lindell, but to snoop on him. Milene, unsettled, begins to wonder, how can a human know everything he knows? Intelligence access alone can't explain it. Milene asks CNL who he really is. CNL says he had a strange feeling when they first met, like Milene had known him for a long time. Milene presses, asking how CNL knows him when they've never met. CNL replies, asking if it matters. Milene is about to continue, but CNL cuts him off, saying Lindell is the priority. He says they have nothing to do with each other and orders Milene to check if there's a spirit in the coffin. Milene sarcastically asks if that's really what CNL wants, teasing him for being afraid the soul he killed might return. CNL, unfazed, says he'd kill her again if needed. He grips Milene's shoulder and urges him to do it now. Milene notices how strong CNL's grip is. He removes CNL's hand and agrees, only because it's for Lindell. As Milene assesses the coffin, he says there's no spirit. She's dead. Still unconvinced, CNL tells him to check the urn beside it. Milene finds it absurd but obeys. He opens the urn and is shocked to see a heart beating without a spirit. CNL reveals it's the sorceress's. Milene confirms there's no spirit. CNL concludes it's a curse, harming Lindell without a trace. Seeing CNL baffled, Milene demands an explanation. Instead, CNL tells him to stay in the palace, saying he has work to do, shocking Milene. Meanwhile, Lindell, sitting on her bed, mumbles while reading a contract. Annoyed by irrelevant details, she crumples it. A visitor arrives, prompting her to hide the mess under her blanket. To her surprise, it's Chancellor Duke Kasir Zareta and his younger sister, Julia. As they sip tea, Lindell suspects they came because of CNL's desire to make her empress, even though Julia is the more promising candidate. Kasir asks how she feels and apologizes for the delayed visit. Lindell says it's fine, though she feels she should be the one apologizing. Julia's sharp gaze unsettles her. Lindell shakes it off and asks how she can help. Kasir says they came to check in and to talk about the crown, just as Lindell expected. As Kasir composes himself to tell Lindell about becoming empress, she notices they don't seem happy about it. She understands if Julia is upset and considers expressing her disinterest in the position. Maybe she can change CNL's mind. Kasir begins, but Lindell interrupts, declining the position without hesitation. Before she can finish, she's shocked to hear him say he hopes she accepts the offer soon. Julia supports him and agrees. Lindell stammers, asking why the Empire needs her. On the side, Julia silently admires her humility. She also notices Lindell's bone-thin wrists, worried if she's being fed well. She wasn't this thin before. Julia remembers how Lindell once saved her from thieves. Since then, she's admired her and tried to emulate her. Seeing her grow weak is heartbreaking. She tries to comfort herself, thinking Lindell's inner strength will guide the Empire. Julia keeps a straight face, which Lindell misreads as a threat. Lindell still wants to understand why they're offering her the role. Kasir explains His Majesty has been distracted lately, neglecting government duties. Before he can explain further, Lindell quickly assumes it's because of her. Seeing her discomfort, Kasir rephrases, saying her confinement is due to the Emperor's worsening obsession. He adds that becoming Empress would allow her to be with the man she loves and save the Empire at the same time. Julia slams the table and scolds Kasir for his sloppy explanation. She stands and firmly tells Lindell the only reason they want her to be Empress is because she's capable. She has the wisdom and discernment of a leader. Lindell says Julia also has those traits. Julia, with a serious demeanor, responds that Lindell as Empress is a silly idea. Lindell assumes she's right about Julia's resentment, only to be shocked when Julia says she deserves to be Emperor. Cassiers tries to stop her, warning it's a dangerous statement, but Julia ignores him. She grabs Lindell's wrist and pleads for her to consider becoming Emperor. But for some reason, Lindell's brain decides to stop working. Tired and overwhelmed, she commands them both to get out. Since they got to say what they needed to, Cassiers and Julia decided to get going. As they step out, Julia halts and asks Lindell a favor. She hopes Lindell can understand His Majesty for detaining her. Though wrong, he must have thought it was the only way to keep her safe. Lindell asks why she's telling her this. Julia says she's heard about Lindell's strange symptoms and how she's often found collapsed. Cassiers adds that since Lindell doesn't speak much, people around her have to guess how she's doing. If that worries them, how much more His Majesty? That night in the Imperial Palace, Cassiers visits CNL. Curious, he nags if CNL took matters into his own hands again. He argues it's impossible to eliminate every threat to Lindell, as it'll only isolate her. CNL slams his sword on the table and says he'll do it if it keeps her safe. Cassiers warns he can't keep canceling official meetings. CNL shifts the topic, bringing up Cassiers' visit to Lindell. Cassiers snaps, saying he begged her to stop CNL because his personal matters are affecting the government and upsetting the nobles. He pleads for CNL to stop because, after all, he is the Emperor. But CNL doesn't seem to care. Frustrated, Cassiers realizes only Lindell can handle him. Suddenly, there's a knock. The knights open the door and Lindell barges in to talk to CNL and is surprised to see Cassiers in there. She wonders what he's doing there because he looks exhausted. CNL fumes, thinking the knights are useless for letting her in, but Lindell asks him not to blame them because she is the one who insisted. CNL scolds Lindell that it's unsafe for her to be out alone. Nevertheless, he asks what brings her there, to which Lindell responds firmly that she no longer wants to be trapped in a room. She asks him to release her. CNL is about to say no, but Lindell cuts in saying she's not dying. Seeing him unconvinced, she adds that this all started when she chose to stay away. But now, she's changed her mind. She wants to be near him and confesses she likes him. And because of this, she cannot leave him, which also means she's not dying. CNL cups Lindell's face as she assures him she's not going to die young. The mood turns serious and intimate, prompting Cassiers to awkwardly excuse himself and leave them alone. Lindell suddenly worries this wasn't part of the plan. CNL looks her in the eyes and asks if she meant it when she said she wouldn't leave him. Lindell nods and they hug. When CNL urges her to speak, she tells him it's his turn. She excitedly asks his opinion about something, but he cuts her off, straight-faced, saying he's thinking, wondering what's going on in that tiny head of hers. He says she keeps defying his expectations, which catches her off guard. He explains he expected her to make excuses or explain what she's been hiding. Instead, she confessed she likes him. He pulls her onto his lap and tells her she's full of surprises. CNL kisses her hand and admits he was furious earlier, but hearing her confession made him feel good. Lindell is relieved, though she slightly complains that he could have said so instead of scaring her with his blank expression. CNL replies that she had no reason to be scared. She already knows he likes her too. Lindell blushes and tries to keep her composure. CNL notices and teases her for being distracted in front of the Emperor. She reacts, pulling back slightly, realizing how close they are. She tells him to be mindful of how good-looking he is. He pulls her back and asks her to say again that she likes him. Lindell doesn't just repeat it. She says she loves him. CNL is relieved and tells her he loves her too. Still blushing, Lindell can't believe her crush likes her back. CNL reveals he wanted to tell her since the day they met. He hugs her and begins to blame himself, saying he's afraid of losing her. He wants to trust her, but he can't. He breaks down, saying he lost everything because of arrogance. He begs her not to leave. Lindell, touched, holds his face and promises she won't. CNL says his wish for her happiness hasn't changed since the beginning. Lindell smiles and says keeping her is simple. He just has to keep telling her he loves her. And then, at their most passionate, they kiss. After such a kiss, CNL gives in to what Lindell asked for. She can't believe what she just heard. CNL admits he's still afraid, but he loves how free-spirited she is. Since she taught him how to keep her by his side, he decides to trust her for now. Elated, Lindell says she can follow his instructions well and kisses him again. That night, CNL sends away the knights watching over Lindell. She still can't leave the palace, but having the entire Empress's quarters to herself gives her room to breathe. Still, staying there means heavier pressure to become an Empress. For now, Lindell is happy and grateful she's no longer trapped or constantly watched. Or so she thinks. While practicing her sword, she notices CNL watching her closely. She tells him to get back to work, but he says he already is, taking care of the next Empress. He hugs her from behind and asks her to spend time with him, perhaps go for a walk. Lindell pulls away, saying she can't focus because he keeps watching and urges him to leave. CNL puts on a sad face and asks if she's changed her mind. Lindell quickly denies it and says his sad face won't work. She reminds him that Foundation Day is near and he should be preparing. CNL says he already took care of it. He left it to the Chancellor. Ignoring her protests, CNL holds her hand and asks her to take a break in the greenhouse. Lindell refuses, saying this isn't freedom. But CNL gives her that sad face again and asks if she doesn't enjoy spending time with him. Lindell finally gives in. CNL's face instantly lights up. She's annoyed at how cunning he is and how easily she gives in. At the greenhouse, Lindell wonders why they're here when they could have walked outside. CNL says it's because she likes flowers. CNL continues walking, pointing out that she prefers small, simple flowers over big, colorful ones. Lindell is in awe of the beautiful blooms she sees. She's impressed that CNL knows her preferences better than she does. He holds her hand and says that he's watched her for a long time, trying to understand her before confessing his love. Then CNL tells her to keep walking. He hasn't even shown her what he really brought her here for. As CNL and Lindell walk through the greenhouse, she's mesmerized. They stop in front of a glass door she doesn't recognize. CNL opens it excitedly, but inside is a dragon. Both are stunned. Lindell assumes this is what he brought her to see. Annoyed, CNL asks the dragon if he really wants human flowers that badly. Hearing them talk so casually, Lindell wonders if they know each other, but doubts it since CNL despises dragons. That's why she never mentioned the contract. She asks if it's his pet. Both immediately deny it. The dragon follows up saying he's just irritated with the Emperor, explaining his tone. He then calls Lindell by name. He asks if she remembers him from the Temple of Lute. It clicks. He's the priest who tried to kill her. Lindell turns to CNL, asking what the dragon is doing there. CNL explains that flowers contain mana, which dragons need. The dragon, Malene, now in his human form, gives Lindell a bunch of flowers, saying she needs it because she's vulnerable. He tells her to eat them. She refuses, saying it won't work since she was born without the ability to use mana. Malene falls quiet, then says that's exactly why she was abandoned, because she's a dragon who can't use mana. Lindell insists she's human. He steps closer, pressing her to admit the truth, but CNL punches him and tells him to leave. Lindell doesn't owe him an explanation. Malene argues he lost mana doing what CNL asked. Frustrated, Lindell steps in and asks what kind of work it was. CNL casually says it involved Malene's decent magical skills. Malene tries to respond, but Lindell interrupts and questions why magic is being used in the palace when only CNL is allowed to. CNL explains that others can, with his permission. Malene adds that the restriction drains more mana, explaining why he ran low on such. Lindell asks what kind of magic uses that much. Malene stammers, but CNL answers for him. He asks Malene to help reinforce the weakening magical barrier around the palace. Lindell isn't convinced. Why would CNL, who despises dragons, ask one for help? She now starts to believe he's hiding something. A few days later, CNL gets busy again, dragged back to work by the Duke. With him gone, Lindell enjoys some freedom, until she receives an invitation to the National Foundation Day banquet. Luna shows her a dress she'll wear, but Lindell asks if she can wear her knight's uniform instead. Luna refuses, saying she's going as the Emperor's partner, not his guard. Lindell insists the dress would suit someone more adorable. Luna tries to reassure her, but after seeing her try it on, even she hesitates. With little time to find a new one, she considers hiring a designer to make one just for Lindell. Lindell suggests wearing her old uniform, but Luna insists she wear something fancy. Everyone else will be in their finest, and Lindell must show she's worthy of becoming Empress. Suddenly, a knock is heard. Julia arrives. After exchanging greetings, Julia notices Lindell is picking an outfit and asks if she's chosen one. Lindell says no, explaining she can't find one that suits her. Julia says dresses aren't the only option. What matters is wearing something that brings out one's true radiance. Luna agrees and reports that Lindell wants to wear her knight's uniform, which isn't appropriate for a banquet. Julia gets an idea. What if it's a different kind of uniform? Luna lights up at the suggestion, thinking it would make Lindell stand out. Lindell sees them talking and wonders what it's all about. Suddenly, Julia asks her maid Nellie to bring over a box and hands it to Lindell. It's a gift, a beautifully designed uniform Julia made herself. Shy, Julia says she hopes Lindell likes it and tells her to wear it only if it's to her liking. Lindell is touched and promises to wear it. Noticing Julia's warm smile, Lindell compliments her, saying she looks beautiful when she smiles and hopes to see it more often. Silence follows. Lindell worries she said something wrong. In truth, Julia's heart is racing. She's in disbelief and completely out of it. Nellie tries to calm her, suggesting she stop thinking of Lindell standing in front of her. Lindell stands there, confused. Nellie quietly escorts Julia out. Once they're gone, Lindell still can't believe what just happened. She looks around, wanting someone to explain it to her. As Lindell and Luna stand in confusion, CNL enters and asks why a visitor was knocked out. Lindell says she wants to know too. She only gave a compliment. CNL looks unconvinced, which she calls out. He leans in and tells her to be more aware of how others see her. He warns her not to seduce people. Lindell denies it, but CNL says she's too naive to realize. He notices the gift in her hands and remembers Kassir's boasting about his sister's skill. Lindell proudly shows him the uniform and says she promised to wear it to the banquet. CNL says it suits her, but admits he's a little disappointed. He wanted to dress her himself, especially for their first banquet as partners. Lindell smiles and assures him there'll be more. Trying to change the topic, she asks why he came. CNL hands her a small box with jewelry he wants her to wear. She admires it and learns he chose a gem matching his eyes so she'll be reminded he's by her side. She blushes after he kisses her forehead. Flustered, she says she'll get even for making her heart pound. CNL laughs and teases her. He turns to leave, but Lindell questions it. He looks back and asks if she's sad to see him go. She says not always. With a teasing smirk, he promises to return soon. Now alone, Lindell reflects on how peaceful moments like this feel unreal. The heat rising in her chest worries her. If it worsens, she might need Larocque's elixir, but hopes not. Thinking of him, she wonders aloud when he'll return. To her surprise, Malene hears it. He then explains he heard she's feeling better and came to check since CNL never tells him anything. He adds her scent is still faint. Lindell asks if she smells bad, but Malene clarifies. It's her draconic scent. Tired of him always insisting she's a dragon, Lindell defends herself again, saying she was born human and will die human. Malene doesn't believe her. He asks if she clings to being human because it's hard to live as a dragon without mana. Lindell has had enough. She demands to know the real reason he came, suspecting he has something to say that CNL mustn't hear. With her arms crossed, Lindell asks Malene why he wants to see her. When he doesn't answer, she pressures him to speak, so he finally does. He asks if she's truly ready to accept CNL as her mate. Royal blood may carry traces of dragons, he says, but the Emperor is still human. If a bond forms between dragon and human, she'll be the one to suffer. Lindell thinks he's being dramatic. To her, a mate is just a spouse. Malene insists she's a dragon and mentions what it means to be a dragon's mate. Lindell, confused, tells him not to pity her. Then a thought strikes. She asks if CNL sent him to talk about her becoming empress. Malene is caught off guard. He realizes CNL has already proposed. When she asks why he looks upset, he says the Emperor isn't in his right mind to propose anything. He urges her to reconsider, saying she deserves better. Lindell calmly replied she already knows CNL is mad, and she likes him anyway. She adds that she doesn't want him to die from that madness, and asks Malene to stop him if he ever goes too far. Standing close, she tells him not to worry about the whole mate thing. As he turns to leave, Lindell stops him. She thought he was going to explain more. Malene says if she's not worried, then she doesn't need the explanation. If she wants to know, she can figure it out herself. He disappears from her room and reappears before CNL, who sleeps sitting. Or so he thought. CNL says he's gotten too bold, sneaking around so freely. Malene wonders how he was recognized without a glance. It bothers him. CNL feels human, yet something's off. Trying to distract himself, Malene asks if he knows what a dragon's mate is. CNL replies, it's someone a dragon gives their reverse scale to, a vow of eternal love. That person holds the dragon's life in their hands. Malene can't believe he knows. He asks if CNL wants to be her mate. Before he can answer, Malene warns him not to cling to her if he understands what the bond means. CNL smirks and tells him to mind his business, unless he's fine losing mana. Frustrated, Malene stays quiet. He wonders why Lindell loves him. They share the same kind of past, yet live different lives. He doesn't know how she learned to love someone else. But even if it's not his place, he still wants to protect her. The National Foundation Day celebration finally begins. Meanwhile, Imperial Palace staff prepare for the banquet on the second day. Lindell, however, isn't tasked with anything, so she spends her time at the training grounds overseeing the knights' routines. It feels good to do something she actually enjoys. Now, she finds herself stuck reporting her romantic progress with CNL to her friend Utilia. Utilia is impressed that Lindell managed to melt CNL's icy heart. She suddenly asks how far they've gone physically, making Lindell spit out her coffee. Too stunned to speak, Lindell just stares. Utilia is serious. Reluctant to answer, Lindell stays quiet, so Utilia assumes they've barely kissed. She teases that Lindell was always too hung up on his majesty to date anyone else, making her a novice in love. Julia appears out of nowhere to defend her, saying Lindell isn't a novice, she's simply pure of heart. Lindell isn't surprised Julia arrived unannounced and welcomes her. Julia explains she came to adjust Lindell's uniform for the banquet. Lindell declines, saying it already fits perfectly. But Julia insists. She wants to see her wearing what she made and be the first to see it. Lindell gives in and puts on the uniform with Utilia's help. Suddenly, Julia panics and complains about using mana, catching their attention. To their shock, it's a mana explosion, and they need to stop it with aura. The blast is so strong they can barely see her. Lindell doesn't understand how Julia could lose control like this. While Utilia gathers aura, Lindell grabs her spear and leaps toward Julia. Julia catches her hand and holds her tightly, calling for Utilia. Utilia rushes in and uses all her strength to suppress the explosion. They manage to stay safe, but Lindell feels her heart burning. Julia trembles, saying it wasn't her doing. Servants rush in, alarmed by the damage. When they ask what happened, Utilia replies that it was a mana explosion, one that erupted from Julia but stems from elsewhere. Lindell stares blankly, wondering why she responded to Utilia's aura. Whatever this was, it must be reported to the Emperor at once. An outside force has attacked the Empress's palace. Crayon, one of the royal guards, examines the only evidence found near the Empress's palace, a mana amplifier and barrier disruptor. Utilia confirms it's an outside attack, noting how odd it is for a mid-level mage to suffer a mana explosion typical of lower ranks. She believes the culprit was after Lindell and is eager to catch them. Fawn tells her to stay calm so they can arrest everyone involved. Crayon agrees. When he asks if they know how to activate the device, Fawn says it still needs investigation. Crayon adds that CNL has ordered a full inquiry and they must do well, as the guard's integrity is at stake. That night, Lindell clutches her chest, relieved she feels better, though confused by her body's reaction despite not using aura. Utilia enters and assures her everything's fine, but Lindell disagrees. It's too early to feel safe. If she was the target, CNL could be next. She asks Utilia to inspect all the places he frequents. As Lindell heads out, she nearly bumps into Melior, a captain of the Royal Guards. When he just stares, she asks if he has something to say. It's unusual. He usually challenges her to a duel. As she walks away, Melior finally speaks, saying it was a planned attack. Lindell isn't surprised. He declares that if she won't brutally punish the culprits, he will. He begins shouting that no one else should defeat her before he does. But Irene, his aide, silences him with a kick and tells him to just admit he's worried. Lindell realizes Melior's threats are just him showing concern. Irene then mentions she has something to report but says it's not urgent. They all quickly leave, leaving Lindell hanging, annoyed by how crazy high-ranking people are. Suddenly, someone hugs her from behind. It's CNL. He says she should have come to him first. When their eyes meet, Lindell thinks the craziest of them all is none other than CNL. Lindell realizes CNL is why Utilia, Melior, and Irene ran off. He takes her hand, checking if she's hurt. She assures him she's fine, but asks why he's out alone, knowing another attack could happen. CNL leans closer and says there's no need to worry, he'll be safe. Their eyes lock, and Lindell senses a dangerous intensity in him. If she can't calm him, he might lose control again. To be sure she's unharmed, he lifts her chin and kisses her. Lindell pushes him away, shocked he'd do that in the hallway where staff might see. CNL brushes it off, saying she'll get used to it. She warns him to stop teasing. He softens, saying the news of the attack scared him so much he had to see her for himself. He admits he ordered the dragon to investigate but found nothing, and doubts the royal guards will either. Lindell says she's certain she was the target, though she's unsure why. Was it because of her, or the Empress's title? Or was it aimed at CNL? CNL realizes he still has much to do to protect her. He squishes her cheeks and tells her she can do anything, as long as she promises never to get hurt. He kisses her cheek and says he doesn't mind taking on difficult tasks for her. Lindell is touched. Her heart swells. She can't help falling for him all over again and admits she'll never be able to let him go. From above, Milene groans. He's been hanging from the chandelier, listening the whole time. He transforms to human form and complains that he's the one doing all the arduous tasks CNL mentioned. CNL stomps his foot and tells him to leave if he has nothing useful to say. Milene threatens to withhold new information. Curious, Lindell grabs his hand and stops him. He reveals he discovered something during his patrol near the Empress's palace. What kind of magical device was used in the attack? Milene explains that the palace barrier is extremely powerful, and only a dwarven-made device could break it. Lindell is shocked, questioning how much a tool could bypass a defense that even drains a dragon's mana. CNL shares her concern. Milene remarks that the culprits clearly planned for that and reveals that the device was embedded with dragon mana, though he doesn't know where it came from. Before Lindell can press him further, he vanishes. Frustrated, Lindell asks CNL if he believes Milene. Though not fond of him, CNL says he doesn't lie. He adds that since dwarves are rare, finding the culprit won't be easy. Lindell grows anxious, but CNL gently reminds her that all they need is to narrow down the suspects. Her expression brightens at the idea. If they can identify a lead, the rest should follow. On the day of the ball, Lindell stands before the mirror and calls for Luna, remarking that she no longer recognizes herself thanks to the makeup. Luna, unfazed, reminds her they haven't even started and instructs her to stop playing around and sit properly. Though tired of the fuss, she lets Luna work, knowing how important the event is. Meanwhile, at the banquet hall, some guests comment on Lindell's sudden attendance, assuming she must have recovered. Mazar interrupts, downplaying the situation as overblown and accusing Lindell of faking her condition. One lady defends Lindell, saying she likely denied her illness to avoid worrying others, as she often puts others first. Mazar, clearly resentful, questions why someone unpolished like Lindell is allowed to sit beside His Majesty. The crowd reacts in disbelief at her boldness. Then the hall falls silent as the doors creak open and the arrival of CNL and Lindell is formally announced. Utilia and Lindell watch as CNL is swarmed by people. Lindell feels relieved she slipped away early, as she dislikes greeting guests all day. She wonders why people now flock to CNL when they once avoided him. Utilia says he's grown gentler lately, thanks to her. Lindell silently agrees. CNL has become more expressive, unlike the cold man he once was. Utilia urges her to approach him now that the crowd has thinned. Suddenly, a loud noise echoes from beyond the door. The guards ready themselves as the doors creak open and a bloodied man collapses into the hall. Cran quickly orders the area secured. The guards search for more intruders while Utilia escorts Lindell towards CNL. But the doors begin to rattle again, this time violently. Panic spreads as monsters burst into the hall. The royal guards unsheath their swords and engage. Seeing the chaos, Lindell lets go of Utilia's hand. Utilia protests, saying it's her duty to protect her. But Lindell insists she can handle herself and urges her to protect CNL instead. With no choice, Utilia leaves. Lindell walks toward the curtain, frustrated that even one peaceful evening is impossible. She's a knight at the core, protecting others comes first. She pulls the curtain wide open, revealing a blonde woman dressed in bold red, seated, a smirk on her face. Lindell has sensed her presence all along. The woman greets her calmly, saying she's been looking forward to their meeting. The blonde woman smiles teasingly at Lindell, sarcastically asking if she sent Utilia away on purpose to protect her. She then mockingly compliments Miss Lindell for her kindness. Irritated, Lindell says she's not her miss and points out how the woman seems to know too much about her. The woman admits she does. After all, she came to meet her. Lindell immediately asks about the dwarven magical device. The woman denies involvement, saying it was made by a colleague. It was such a petty method, not at all to her grander tastes. She then shifts the conversation, calmly taunting Lindell if she won't take her on while unarmed. Lindell draws her dagger. The woman nearly laughs, having heard of Lindell's skill but amused she rely on such a small weapon. She boasts about her own power. Lindell, undeterred, says a dagger is more than enough. As the woman walks towards her, Lindell asks if she was the target. The woman answers both yes and no. She's just a means to an end. Furious, Lindell slashes, but the woman dodges easily, telling her to stop asking dumb questions and just die. Lindell refuses. Her life is too valuable to throw away. The woman draws her sword. Lindell notes how unfair that is against a dagger, but she simply grins. Villains don't play fair. She lunges, sword swinging. Lindell blocks with her dagger, pushing her back with raw strength. Still, she silently worries her weapon won't last long. The woman is stronger than expected. Dodging won't be enough. If she wants to win, she'll have to abandon her blade. The woman assumes Lindell plans to dodge and is impressed that she hasn't used aura. perhaps she can't. Lindell says it's none of her business. With that, the woman ends the talk and attacks again, declaring that after Lindell, she'll kill CNL next. As she strikes, Lindell ducks, not just to dodge, but to grab her weapon and drive it into her side. Blood spills from the woman's mouth, stunned by the counterattack. Lindell tells her never to underestimate someone just because they throw away their weapon. She is, after all, a sneaky little mouse. The woman drops to her knees. Lindell warns her not to even think about touching CNL as long as she's alive. She rushes to the ballroom and is stunned to see the monsters collapsing. That's when she realizes they were under the woman's control. Panicked, she searches for CNL and is relieved to find him unharmed. She gives him an awkward smile, promising to explain later. In the distance, the woman, pale and bleeding, watches them. Despite her state, she's impressed by Lindell's sneak attack. Lindell sees her peeking and is shocked she's still conscious. After all that blood? How is she even human? The woman enters and compliments Lindell for her devotion to CNL, though she wonders if that same devotion extends to other humans. Off to the side, she spots a child, a perfect specimen for her experiment. The child screams, but Lindell quickly comes to his rescue, dagger in hand. The woman glances at the weapon and remarks that it doesn't look useful anymore. CNL sees them and calls out to Lindell, but she stops him, saying she'll handle it. With her strength returned, the monsters are back. She turns to Lindell, ready to end things. Lindell notices her hand slowly turning to metal and asks if she's even human. The woman snickers and tells her to guess. Lindell says she doesn't seem human. Her body is clearly changing. Seeing the frightened child behind her, Lindell wonders how much longer she can fight while protecting him. She notices CNL using his magic and thinks she only has to hold out a bit longer. She reassures the child that CNL will come. Annoyed at being ignored, the woman lunges. Lindell pushes her back, but knows she won't last long. She pulls a small bottle from her pocket, something she never meant to drink, but now she has no choice. Just as she begins to drink, the attacker slaps it away, but Lindell already feels strange. Something is wrong with what she swallowed, and she begins to question what LaRoque gave her. Her mind feels like it's unraveling. The scene shifts to LaRoque and Tumel. LaRoque asks how long she's been unconscious. Tumel says not long, though by human standards, it might seem so. He tells her it's time to let go. LaRoque protests, but he reminds her that even dragons die. She breaks down, feeling misunderstood, especially by him who knows what she lost. Tumel apologizes, but says it's reckless to go on like this. LaRoque doesn't care. She has only her life to lose. She admits she lied to Lindell, the innocent child who doesn't even know what she is, just to get this far. She won't take it back, and won't regret it, no matter the cost. Tumel comforts LaRoque and assures her that Lindell will be all right, saying she's already done enough by giving Lindell an Estelle. Still, LaRoque feels guilty, thinking what she's done isn't enough. Tumel tries to ease her guilt, explaining that an Estelle takes vast amounts of mana and days of careful work to make. Not all dragons can even create one, so she shouldn't be too hard on herself. LaRoque wonders if Lindell has already used it. Tumel assumes it's likely, since Lindell would have faced problems without LaRoque by her side. Overwhelmed by guilt, LaRoque can't stop crying. She confesses that she lied to Lindell even while giving her the Estelle. She told her there might be side effects because she's human, but in truth, she only said that because she was afraid Lindell would find out what she truly is. The weight of her conscience consumes LaRoque. Every day feels like torture. Tumel wipes her tears and reminds her that Lindell is tough and will hold out for sure. She thanks him for his kind words and for the Estelle. She says he's always been kind to her. Tumel replies that he can still do more. He then changes the topic and asks why she needed one of his spices. He reveals he noticed she took a bottle when she stopped by for the Estelle. LaRoque is confused, saying she only took the Estelle and nothing else. Tumel starts wondering where it went. LaRoque offers to help him look, but he says it's nothing important, just that it bothers him something went missing. He mentions it was a bottle of red liquid on top of the cupboard. This shocks LaRoque. She realizes that red liquid is the one she took. She thought it was the Estelle. She explains that she heard Estelle's glow red, so she assumed that was it. Now worried, LaRoque realizes Lindell only has a bottle of spice. Back at the banquet hall, Lindell is on her knees, gagging from what she drank, still confused about what it is. It's so repulsive she can't even lift her head. The child sees Lindell weakened and thinks the blonde woman is responsible. He cries for help, shouting that Lindell is in danger. Melior rushes in, furious at the woman for dueling with Lindell, someone even he hasn't defeated yet. He draws his sword and points it at her, saying there's a long queue of people wanting to duel Lindell and she should have waited. The woman is shocked by the accusation and insists she didn't do anything. She even shows the stab wound Lindell gave her to prove Lindell hurt her, not the other way around. Melior doesn't believe her. The child adds fuel to the fire, warning Melior to be careful since she must be incredibly fast and strong to have injured Lindell. Annoyed, the woman insists the child didn't see her attack because there was no attack. Melior assumes she must have used a hidden assassin's weapon, but the woman says Lindell is just pretending to be injured. CNL suddenly arrives with a powerful blast, knocking down the monsters and the woman. He's furious, knowing Lindell's life is in danger. After praising the child for his bravery, he commands Melior to take the woman away. CNL kneels beside Lindell and apologizes for being late. He carries her in his arms and tells her to stay awake until she's treated. Lindell looks at CNL crying. She wants to tell him she's perfectly fine. But seeing how broken he looks, like he's lost everything, she can only embrace him silently. News of a strange woman attacking Lindell spreads quickly, sparking fear among the servants. Rumors exaggerate her inhuman nature, and panic grows over how she escaped strict surveillance. Rumors indeed spread like wildfire. The Chancellor hears the rumors and reports to Emperor CNL that news of the attack has spread, despite no announcement. He also mentions 5 missing servants and 3 laborers, suspecting they were turned into strange figures. Emperor CNL, alarmed but composed, calls for an investigation into forbidden magic. He specifically mentions dark spells that use human bodies as vessels to control lifelike figures. Showing his protectiveness, he issued a stern warning that anyone who dares speak ill of Lindell will be executed without hesitation. In a dining area, Marath, who confronted Lindell, dines with fellow antagonists. Although accused, she remains certain she never harmed Lindell. Confusion spreads among them as they question how Lindell suddenly collapsed when no visible injury occurred. Marath believes Lindell drank poison to frame her. The group overthinks the incident, their judgment clouded by doubt and suspicion. They're so funny overthinking about it. Their discussion is interrupted when a cloaked man enters the room, greeted respectfully as the future emperor. He speaks with authority, demanding more information about Lindell, the favored knight to Emperor CNL. Meanwhile, in her bedchamber, Lindell lies in bed, her body aching with sickness. She barely notices her servant showing her a beautiful flower as she is lost in her own thoughts. Unknown to her, the bottle she drank from, meant to be dragon-forged medicine, was mistakenly switched by LaRoque. Lindell sobs slightly, thinking about how to get back at LaRoque with the terrible potion she gave her. But she recalls how she had to face all the troubles without her. She just hopes that LaRoque will come back. Next day, Lindell lies in bed, letting out a soft sigh as her maid Luna watches her closely with concern. Luna has been unusually sensitive, reacting to everything Lindell does or doesn't do, as if it might be her last. Though Lindell insists she's feeling fine, Luna remains concerned about her. Despite Lindell's reassurance, Luna quickly calls for a priest to examine her. Lindell hurries after her, saying she'll handle the priest's visit herself. But Luna insists on staying nearby in case Lindell collapses. Lindell is surely loved by everyone. Luna seriously says that if Lindell wants to leave her room, she'll have to get through her first. With a cheeky smile, Lindell starts humming and dances with her maid, playfully tricking her so she can get past. The maid worries she'll get in trouble, while Lindell thinks she's already in trouble anyway since the Emperor believes she's dying. Out in the hallway, Lindell runs into Emperor CNL, who tells her he's been looking for her. There's a quiet tension between them, something unspoken hanging in the air. An unexpected romance fills the air. CNL listens gently to her concerns, then kisses her forehead and takes her hand, suggesting they walk to the greenhouse. Lindell notices his hand is cold and wonders if it's just nerves, or if something deeper is going on. Still, she says nothing, letting him lead the way. At the greenhouse, they sit together on a bench surrounded by quiet beauty. CNL watches her as their hands remain clasped, the silence between them soft and full. Lindell finally brings up the ball, worried he's upset she broke her promise and acted without his permission. But CNL surprises her, saying he understands her need to protect those who can't defend themselves. He reminds her she's always been kind, that it's simply who she is. Lindell blushes as he speaks, her heart fluttering with each word. He is so in love. Then, CNL rests his head gently on her shoulder, his voice warm and low. He says he'll support her no matter what because he's known her heart from the very beginning. Deep down, though, he wishes he didn't have to share that heart with the world she's always trying to save. Lindell recalls the childhood she shared with Emperor CNL. From this perspective, she always treated him with warmth and care, but to her, he constantly pushed her away during their encounters. Lindell thinks that CNL remembers the past with rose-colored glasses. Though he was physically weak, his sharp tongue kept others from bothering him. Due to the recent strange events, Emperor CNL appoints Malene as Lindell's personal bodyguard. Lindell is shocked upon hearing this news and finds it hard to believe Malene would agree to be her own personal guard. To her surprise, it was Malene himself who suggested it. Before, Malene lived in the palace in secret, fearing gossip if a priest of Lute suddenly appeared. Now, as Lindel's bodyguard, he finally has a reason to stay and be of use. Being a dragon, he is also the safest choice to protect her since he is stronger than any ordinary knight. Lindell realizes how much Emperor CNL must care for her to allow this arrangement, even if she doesn't think she needs protection. She smiles quietly, touched by his concern and how far he's willing to go to keep her safe. Later that day, Lindell meets Malene dressed in night clothes that make him look unusually charming. She teases him, saying the outfit really does make the man, causing Malene to blush at her words. Their playful exchange lightens the mood between them. However, having Malene as her personal bodyguard might spark new rumors. As a priest of Lute, people believe he only appears when someone is terminally ill, feeding into the false belief that Lindell is dying. Once again, everyone misunderstands the situation. Malene teases Lindell about having dragon blood, something she refuses to believe. She drinks a bitter, rejuvenating drink from Luna, only to start feeling dizzy and acting strangely. Her words come out weird, and her vision spins. Suddenly, a group of nobles approaches. They're part of the aristocrats' assembly now gathered in the palace. One noble mocks Lindell, refusing to accept that someone so unrefined could become an empress. Malene steps in, his voice sharp and threatening. But before things get worse, Lindell's father appears and knocks the man to the floor. Well deserved! Lindell is caught off guard when her father suddenly steps in to defend her from the arrogant noble. She struggles to understand his reason, wondering if it was truly out of care or simply a calculated move. Her thoughts spiral, suspecting he must have only acted to protect the Bodabanche name, as any insult to her could damage the family's honor. Malene is equally stunned by the unexpected appearance of Lindell's father. He had always assumed her father would be a dragon, which now leads him to believe Lindell might be a hybrid, half human, half dragon. But Lindell quickly corrects him, firmly stating that she's neither a dragon nor a hybrid. Malene always lightens the mood in the most unexpected ways. Watching their exchange from a distance, Emperor CNL notices their easy banter and feels a twinge of jealousy. Lindell senses this and laughs softly, telling him not to worry and assuring him she isn't being unfaithful. She deeply thinks that she sees Malene as nothing more than a little brother. To address the insult, Emperor CNL orders the immediate imprisonment of the noble who disrespected Lindell. He explains that the noble was likely frustrated, as CNL has recently begun arresting corrupt members of the aristocracy. Though Lindell understands, she grows anxious, fearing these nobles might join forces and plot treason against the throne. Aw, these two caring for each other is sweet. CNL calmly reassures her, promising that he won't let things spiral out of control. His confidence gives her a small sense of comfort, though the tension in the palace continues to grow. Everyone around them seems to be on edge, as if waiting for the next move in a dangerous game. Later, Shane, the chief of the royal guards, arrives with a guest, Hasina, the first priestess of Lute. Lindell expects someone to be dark and somber, but instead, Hasina shines with surprising brightness and warmth. Her presence is powerful yet gentle, not at all what Lindell imagined. Hasina speaks with admiration about Lindell's past actions, praising the strength behind her choices, born from love and sacrifice. She holds Lindell's hand and promises to serve her with loyalty, telling her not to fear death, as it is kind to all kind beings. Unexpectedly, Hasina reveals a hidden truth. Lindell has previously made a contract with a dragon. Will Hasina reveal this hidden truth? Lindell is stunned when Hasina, the Dark Priestess, reveals knowledge of her secret pact with a dragon. She can't understand how Hasina found out, and the weight of being discovered sinks in. Hasina's knowing gaze unsettles her, yet she remains calm. With a poetic tone, Hasina begins to pray, drawing attention from nearby knights. They whisper among themselves, joking that she'd make a better actress than a priestess. As the atmosphere grows tense, Hasina asks everyone to stay back, warning with a smile that anyone who comes closer may face danger. Don't let her angelic look fool you. She knows exactly what she's doing. Emperor CNL clenches his fist, clearly uneasy about the situation but unable to stop it. Lindell quickly assures him that she's fine, which calms him slightly. Hasina ends her chant with an eerie line, "For it is no sin to save what should have died." The line sends a chill down CNL's spine, making him flinch as he locks eyes with Hasina. He can't help but wonder if the blame for Lindell's situation lies with him. The unsettling feeling lingers as the room falls silent. Hasina promises to serve Lindell faithfully, even if it means losing her powers or facing the wrath of the god of death. CNL, still uneasy, hisses under his breath, questioning how she plans to help. Hasina proposes a private meeting with Lindell to examine her condition and possibly find a cure, and CNL reluctantly agrees. Both Lindell and Hasina know the truth and the lies she did, as Hasina just played along. Hasina reminds Lindell that no one else knows about her pact with the dragon, and she doesn't plan to expose her. Though Hasina doesn't reveal Lindell's elaborate lies to the public, she sees this as an opportunity to gain something. Money. It all goes down to money. Ka-ching. She suspects that Lindell might have formed a pact with Malene, and even assumes that Emperor CNL could be a dragon himself, given his striking appearance, something commonly seen among the more elegant dragon race. Lindell doesn't confirm anything, and instead grows suspicious of Hasina's intentions. To prove her loyalty, Hasina offers an unbreakable oath, swearing she's on Lindell's side. If she ever betrays the oath, all her powers will vanish, her word sealed in magic. The unbreakable oath between Lindell and Hasina is sealed, witnessed by the god whom Hasina serves. Despite the sacred nature of the oath, Lindell remains cautious. Something about Hasina still makes her uneasy, a feeling she can't ignore. Hasina then reaches into her robes and pulls out a hidden medal. Lindell stares in shock, her mouth slightly open as realization hits. Hasina isn't just a cleric, she's a saintess of Lute. The medal she holds is a symbol of the highest honor, reserved only for saintly figures. Yet Lindell can't shake the uneasy feeling in her chest. Of course, what could a saintess be doing there if not something more? That evening, Lindell lies in bed, weighed down by worry and guilt. Her soul is cursed, the pain real, yet she's kept it all secret, especially from Emperor CNL. The lies are beginning to pile up. As the night grows late, Emperor CNL enters her bedroom, concern written on his face. He was concerned about her even if the Dark Priestess promised that she can protect Lindell. He just wants to make sure she's truly all right. Quietly, he tucks her in her bed, covering her with sheets. He is so caring. Lindell watches him, feeling the distance between them more than ever. She senses he's been avoiding her, and though she wants to tell him everything, she can't. He despises dragons, believing them to be greedy, selfish, and evil. And he loathes the dragon's blood within himself so much that he dreams of draining it out of his body completely. That is a reason why her lies pile up. Trying to ease the tension, Lindell gently says that not all dragons are like that. But Emperor CNL remains firm, saying even humans who form pacts with dragons are pathetic, and he detests them as well. His words sting, and Lindell quietly pulls away. She turns her back to him and lies down, telling him she's tired. Inside, her heart aches from his harsh judgment, and she buries her sadness. Meanwhile, CNL silently wonders what Lindell has learned, realizing she asked about his hatred for dragons for a reason. The next day, Lindell quietly asks Malene, a dragon himself, if he believes dragons are truly born evil. Without hesitation, Malene nods and calls the dragons irredeemable scum. Lindell feels her heart sink, wondering what kind of race dragonkind must be for both Emperor CNL and Malene to despise their own blood so deeply. Their hate runs so deep, it's more than just dislike for their own kind. Seeing her troubled expression, Malene tries to comfort her, saying she's the only exception to what he believes. He insists that Lindell is an exception because she's a kind person with dragon blood, even if Lindell thinks she's not a dragon. Gently, he promises to tell her the reason why he came to hate his own race. Just not yet. A short while later, Hasina arrives and immediately reaches for Lindell's wrist, checking her pulse with expert fingers. She offers a calm smile and assures Lindell that she must have slept well and that her health is stable for now, but warns her to always be cautious. Lindell nods quietly, still unsure whether to fully trust the radiant yet mysterious priestess. Malene then asks how long Hasina has served the Temple of Lute. Hasina responds that she's been dedicated to it since she was a child. In contrast, Malene explains he never had a choice. He was born cursed with the ability to see souls, something he never wanted and still struggles to live with. The hatred is on fire! Lindell notices the quiet tension growing between the two, sensing a deeper grudge behind their words. Hasina, in an effort to change the atmosphere, suggests they go on a casual outing with knights disguised in plain clothes. Dressed in cloaks, they all leave the palace, blending into the crowd as their guards trail behind, looking more like thugs than soldiers. As soon as they're away from the palace, Hasina excuses herself and disappears to do her own business. Lindell and Malene continue on, eventually sitting down to dine at a quiet spot. Malene then casts a soundproof spell to keep their conversation private. When the spell is in place, Malene finally admits that he hates Hasina just as much as he hates dragons. His tone is bitter, and Lindell listens carefully, trying to understand the pain behind his harsh words. Every hatred has a reason. Humanity turns to different gods depending on their circumstances. Ursula, the goddess of life, is worshipped for blessings, healing, and protection, while Lute, the god of death, is honored in remembrance and mourning. People pray to Ursula in times of hope and to Lute when facing loss or honoring the dead. Dragons, however, worship only Ursula with unwavering devotion. They believe that even death must pass under Ursula's blessing, as if they seek to escape mortality and dream of an eternal life. To them, Ursula represents everything pure and sacred, while Lute is a name never spoken. Malene was born with Lute's blessing, the ability to see souls, something that would have been acceptable if he was born as a human. But being born a dragon made him a cursed being in the eyes of his own race. Dragons regard Lute as a vile deity, so his parents abandoned him out of shame and fear. Malene's eyes, gifted by Lute, were hated by other dragons, and they tried to maim them, claiming it was for his own good. Lindell is stunned by this cruel truth, but Malene speaks with bitterness, filled with hatred not only toward dragons but also toward Lute, who gave him powers he never wanted. Deep down, he loathes himself for never fighting back. I guess villains aren't born, they're made. Lindell's eyes blaze with fury as she curses his race for what they did to him. She urges Malene to stand tall, to fight back, and never let himself be broken again. Malene blushes, knowing she is not pitying him but siding with him. Unbeknownst to them, a vibrant blonde-haired child nearby watches with great interest, quietly observing their conversation. This child is no ordinary bystander. He is connected to Moroth, the woman who attacked during the previous ball who escaped under tight surveillance. As the child heads back to the place where the antagonists stay, he transforms into a grown man with beautiful features. He reports everything he saw and heard to his allies, including Lindell's harsh words against dragons. Oh my, he is surely attentive in detail. He reveals not just Lindell's bold stance, but also the presence of not one, but 2 dragons among her group. His eyes gleam as he delivers the report, knowing this information will stir trouble in the already fragile world surrounding Lindell. The delightful half-day outing ended quicker than expected, and Hasina, who had slipped away earlier, returned looking as if she had just lost her entire fortune. Her bright energy was gone, and her expression was unusually grim. As soon as they arrived back at the Imperial Palace, Malene excused himself, saying he had an urgent matter to attend to. Lindell had only planned a short break, hoping to rest afterward, but her plans were quickly interrupted. While walking through one of the palace corridors, she unexpectedly spotted an aristocrat speaking in hushed tones with the captain of the Royal Guard. She quickly recognized them. It was Alita, the captain of the White Knights, and Duke Giadel. Their tense exchange unsettled Lindell. Duke Giadel hissed at Alita for hiding the Emperor's orders, and Lindell, heart pounding behind a pillar, sensed the conversation dangerously close to treason. Duke Giadel storms off with anger deep inside him as Alita was left alone. Alita, however, seemed to sense her presence and calmly called out, asking her to step out of hiding. Lindell hesitated, then revealed herself, staring at him with suspicion. He surely needs to explain this to her. Without warning, Lindell struck Alita across the face, furious and confused. Alita held his cheek, stunned but composed with a slight pout on his face, and quickly explained himself. He insisted that he was only following Emperor CNL's orders and was not involved in any plot against the crown. Poor Alita! He got hit before he could explain! Alita revealed that the Emperor had tasked him with secretly investigating Duke Giadel. According to the report, Duke Giadel had formed dangerous connections, alliances with individuals not from the imperial aristocracy. These allies, whoever they were, had a clear goal. They were after the Emperor. Lindell's thoughts spun as she realized what seemed like treason was a secret mission ordered by the Emperor. Still, the palace felt more dangerous with each passing day. As she turned to leave, Alita warned her to be cautious around Emperor CNL. Though a brilliant ruler, his cold, rational nature made him nearly inhuman. Suddenly, Lindell's nose began to bleed. Alita rushed forward in alarm as she collapsed, losing consciousness. And that's it for today, guys. What did you think? As always, don't forget to like the video and comment for the next part so we know you want more. Remember to subscribe and turn on notifications for updates. See you in the next one!